Good evening and welcome to the Italian Impact Podcast. I am your host, Steve Stefano Mancini, and again, I'd like to thank all of my listeners, and I can proudly say this from all over the world, and a special shout out to my listeners down under in Australia. I've got a bunch of people down there in Australia, and I don't know why, but again, I've got to acknowledge, I want to thank my listeners in Singapore. So for whatever reason, my ratings and viewership in Singapore is going up, up, up. I love it. And folks in Brazil have been tuning in. So I can't thank you all enough. You know, again, to have one person hear you is one thing, but to have people from all over the world tuning in, it's very special. It's very humbling, especially if you know anything about me and know my background. To have a podcast that people all over the world are taking time out of their lives to download and listen to, I cannot say, God bless you and thank you very much for giving me, a few moments of your life. So thank you again. And also I want to mention that if you have not had a chance to enjoy it, the documentary Fedeltà, Soldier Prisoner is out there on Amazon. The reason I'm pushing this is not because I get a whopping 99 cents per view, that was the minimum I could charge to put it on Amazon, but because I do truly believe in the story. The story about these prisoners that came from, some very terrible conditions in North Africa and in Sicily, but I think worse in North Africa because, as it's been noted and denoted multiple times, they literally were starving to death. They literally did not have water. They were literally running out of ammunition. They were walking through the desert in some cases to surrender, in some cases just being moved, so they're surrendering, and then they're being marched through the desert to different camps. So they endure this, these incredible hardships, in some cases for multiple years, not knowing what the future held for them. And, ultimately they make their way to the United States. We're one of the few countries that honored the Geneva Convention and treated our prisoners very well. And they never forgot that. And they took those stories and all of the good and the bad that happened to them, and it shaped their lives. And then when they eventually did go back to Italy after the war, they took all of this and they were very appreciative of the Americans. And I don't think that people understand how you treat someone is going to create a ripple effect through time. And so when I had it was just truly an honor to interview the family members of these prisoners and talk to them, the stories they told me about their dads and their grandfathers and uncles and their great uncles, and the fact that they were taught from them how good the Americans were to them. It completely changed minds and perceptions in Italy to this day. So I do, encourage you, if you've got, an hour and 20 minutes and we can all find it, please go watch the documentary. If for nothing else, I just think there's a wonderful message in all of this. And again, as I mentioned the last time, I have been appointed the honorary consular here in Pittsburgh. Busy. I do have an email. I do have a phone number now. I'm going to put that out there. You can go look out on my Facebook site, and I'll start trying to put contact information. I get a lot of questions. I get questions on visas. I get questions on pensions. I get questions on, how do I start this process? What do I do for this? What do I do for that? I was actually kind of caught off guard with a number of requests that I was receiving, but the one that comes to everyone's mind is Cittadinanza, citizenship. And because of that, I decided to bring on some folks who actually reached out to me not too long ago for assistance for something unrelated, and I'm finding myself slowly becoming friends with them. A very nice couple, and I'm very happy that they made time. Again, anytime somebody takes time out of their life for you, you should be appreciative of that. I know I am. And so without further ado, I do want to welcome Francesco and Chrissy Pircio to the show. Francesco and Chrissy, come va?
Hi Steve, bene, grazie. Tu?
Very good.
Stanchissimo. Oggi era il primo giorno del semestre qui all'università. Sono stanchissimo. But I'm always thankful. Francesco and Chrissy, first off, I want to thank you again for taking time out. I know you guys got some little ones, so I'm going to start with, the question that I think all of our listeners want to know, which is, who the hell are you? I think it's a fair question. No, Francesco, tell me a little bit about, you and Chrissy. How did you guys meet, first off? Let's start there.
We met
Long story short, yeah.
a few years ago.
Mutual friend, really.
Mutual friend at a party. a party in a neighborhood in the Pittsburgh area called Moon Township, which actually ended up where we're actually living now. We had no idea that that place was going to become home for us. And we had some common friends. There was a party.
Lightning struck.
Right.
One of those things that,
We didn't look back.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So you guys have known each other a couple years. You're married. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not judging, but, this is going to lead us to the next part of the whole Cittadinanza. But we're going to get to there in a second. So you guys live, and the funny thing is, it turns out you don't live very far from me. So I thought that was kind of comical when we were talking. Now, Francesco, you have a very funny accent. You must be from another country. Where are you from? And tell me which region of Italy.
Well, yes, I am obviously from Italy, originally from a city called Campobasso in the region of Molise.
Okay.
Many people don't know about this region. It's the second smallest region in Italy. Used to be one region together with Abruzzo Molise used to be called until 1960. But after the split, now there are two regions. One is Abruzzo, one is Molise. Many people here, I found out, they say that their family is originally from Abruzzi, but when they told me the name of the village, it's actually Molise. So they don't even know that there was a split of the two regions.
So I'll tell you what, it's funny you say that, because that is exactly what happened to me. I found out, and I'm going to say this kind of funny, but I always say that part of my family is from Abruzzo, and some of them are from Abruzzo, but some of them are from that region, and I'm not even going to try and sort it out. But it is funny because they were so close to where that split became formalized that some of them are actually not from Abruzzo, but I just say Abruzzo. And I think, to your point, most people don't know that the geographic alignments in Italy have changed, most likely since their family came over here 120 years ago.
Right.
So, all right, now, Chrissy, are you Italian at all?
Yeah, my descent, I'm 100%. So both
thank God. Thank God, Chrissy, because I was going to just cut you off.
No, absolutely. My dad actually came over when he was born in Italy, and came over with his family when he was like 12. My mom was born here, but all sets of my grandparents, everybody came over, basically. So 100%.
Oh, okay. So this isn't strange for you to be with an Italian man. You're like, I understand. They really are loud and talk with their hands, because you do it too, Chrissy, whether you know that or not.
Yeah, I know it. Don't worry.
Now, let's just get to the real joy of this conversation. Cittadinanza. And by the way, and I'm curious about something. Let's start here. Chrissy, you are not an Italian citizen, correct?
No, I am now.
Oh, okay. Now, did you get that because of your father or because of your marriage?
Well, let me try to abbreviate the story for you.
So we've got a lot of time. Go. No, I'm just kidding.
I, in theory, am eligible through my family because obviously, like I said, 100% on both sides. However, because of the laws, basically, for 1948, if the member that you're trying to go to was born before 1948, you have to only go through the men's side because women weren't acknowledged before them. So when I tried to do that on both grandfathers' sides, they naturalized before their children were born or before my dad, for example, had me. So the chain was broken, essentially. So I can't do it. So the only way that I could go through would be through my mom's mom, because she never naturalized. But since she was born before 1948, and so was my mom, it would be what's called a 1948 case, where you have to take it to court in Italy and cross your fingers and pay lots of money and hope that it goes through. They were having some success with it, but I know that it's not the ideal way that they like to send it through. Go ahead.
Yeah, because it's not guaranteed. It's pretty, you have very good chances, but it's an extra step, and you have to pay the law firm quite a bit more.
Very pricey. But isn't it true that the government of Italy is trying to kind of discourage it at this point?
They're trying to discourage it, and you were just making notice that they took it away from the website of the Philadelphia consulate, which basically is the consequence of a little kind of document that was going through the Italian government.
It was a new interpretation, I believe.
Yes,
was one of the
because
laws.
they're changing interpretation, and they're trying not to get too many of those cases because
they're trying to minimize
it's
it.
congesting the system, basically.
Now,
So I was fortunate enough to be able to go through marriage, so that's the way that I chose to do it, so it saved a lot of time. And I was able to go through it that way, which was really helpful. Thanks, hon.
you knew there was a reason he brought him into your life. I get it. Now, I'm going to talk about this because now, again, the biggest thing now, Francesco, before I step ahead, you provide a service, a translation service. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I have been in the translation business for a couple of decades, but in the past 5-6 years, before the material to translate was mostly related to corporation, software, all these kind of things. But in the past 5-6 years, there was also
large
this
uptick
request of documents to be translated for citizenship applications, something that, before I would have never thought. But now, it's very common that
it's a big demand.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
During the pandemic, it kind of exploded a little bit.
Yeah, people had time on their hands to finally go for that dream.
now let's talk about that then, because it does seem like there is a large uptick in people wanting their Italian citizenship. In your opinion, why is that?
I think it's just a matter of being proud of being Italian. I don't think that it's a kind of it's really wanting to belong, because you heard stories, you know your parents and grandparents, and maybe you learn a little bit of the language, maybe you learn a little bit about the food, but you feel always with one foot here and one foot there. If you really want to belong 100%, I think that's the reason. Another reason is because people start the process thinking that it's much easier than it is. But once you get involved, at that point, I think people don't just continue. But I've talked to people thinking that it's like an application, like for a driving license, And once you are in it, you realize, oh my gosh, this is HELL. This requires a lot. So, but they're starting to dance and they continue. So I think these are the main reasons.
No, well, it's funny. It's funny you say that because, like I said, since I've taken over this position, I'm seeing a lot of people. I mean, I'm absolutely floored at the number of people that want to do this, and I'm trying to scratch my head and say, why? If you're not going to retire there or move there or buy a home or stay there for very long periods of time, I almost don't know why you're doing it. And you kind of touched on something that it makes them feel like, hey, I'm real Italian now because I've got my citizen. Now, with that being said, you've been living in America for a little while now, and obviously born in Italy. When you see Italian Americans, and I'm not being disparaging, because I've talked to other Italians, but and a lot of Italians say, well, you Italian Americans, you're kind of living in the past of Italy. How do you view, Italian Americans that have been separated from their descendants by generations in some cases? I mean, what is your kind of observation on that?
Well, a few years ago, I thought it was kind of funny because for many Italian Americans, Italy is like a snapshot in a different era. But with the technology, most of Italian Americans are very much updated on what's going on, because look at YouTube. Look at the YouTube channels where you can actually watch and see Italy as it is now. See, even start to practice a little bit the language. You can do so much with the video technology that you're not stuck in the past anymore.
Right.
Really, not, unless you want to.
Well, I think that goes a little bit with what you were saying earlier, why people want to have this. I think a lot of people are chasing the La Dolce Vita. That's kind of in their mind. Like you said, they have this romanticized and nostalgia from their parents, great-grandparents, and things like that. But also, I mean, everybody loves to go visit Italy and eat the food, and they want to have, more of that and kind of chase that dream. But then, as you're saying, you can actually touch now with more technology and kind of, catch up to where Italy is instead of having this, in the past, as you were saying before. So I think that it all ends up kind of melding together a little bit.
Well, and I would throw something else at you, because I'm assuming you've obviously been to Italy multiple times, and maybe you've stayed there, and I've been there multiple times. And there's a very big difference between going anywhere on vacation versus living there. And I think a lot of people go on vacation. They go, oh, my God, I want to live here, and it's going to be just like this if I live there. And then, so I'm sure now, kind of fast forward, now, have you ever met and talked to friends or somebody you know that went there from the U.S. to Italy and go, wait a minute, it's not like that vacation I thought I had? Nah, believe me, listen, I've been there enough that I know the good and the bad, and I still would love to live there. But I go there with my eyes wide open. Have you met folks, or do you know somebody personally that went there and had their eyes opened?
Like I said, I think even us, because I have family there as well as my husband. So when we're there, we see, we go visit family and friends all over the place on both sides. So we're there for a good amount of time. And even just if we're there for, let's say, a month with our kids, we run into the things you'd have to run into as if you're living there, and the bureaucracy of stuff. And even when you go through the citizenship, you realize the bureaucracy, which to me is one of my least favorite parts of Italy. And I love just about everything about it, but let's be honest, that part is a little bit of a thorn.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm the honorary consulate here. Are you talking about me, Chrissy? Those are fighting words.
I'm setting the red carpet for you.
No, I answered the phone. It's like, you're welcome.
We are very sympathetic with the people working at the
No, absolutely.
Well,
we know
absolutely.
how much understaffed.
Absolutely.
Oh, Philadelphia, God bless them. Listen, and I want to say this to my listeners, and that's kind of a good segue to this, because, a lot of people are reaching out and they're going, I can't get a hold of Philadelphia. I can't get a hold of Philadelphia. I can't get a hold of Philadelphia. What they don't understand is there's only a finite number of consulates in the United States, and they have very large areas to cover. Mm-hmm. So if you knew the staffing and knew the job they were doing, you would understand they're actually working very hard. And it is not easy, to be handling all this, especially to what your point was, this massive uptick in citizenship. And it's not like, and I love how you said it, it's not a driver's license where you just fill out the application. I mean, you've got to physically trace your roots back to Italy, which means you're going to need documentation from Italy all the way up to now to show that you have the proper lineage to qualify for the citizenship. And that process alone is difficult. And then you're going to take all of this paperwork and you're going to go to Italy and they've got to review it. And they're not just reviewing yours, they're reviewing thousands and thousands of cases of people that want their citizenship. And there's always little issues in that. So every time you've got to tweak something, they've received 10 more applications. And so they got to go back and look at yours and then look at these new 10 that they've got. So yeah, it's bureaucracy. And in some cases, like I said, I've been to Italy enough times, worked with the Italian government and different things that, yes, there's bureaucracy, then there's just understaffing. And I think I think Philadelphia falls into they're trying hard, understaffed, But I do think that, to your point, Chrissy, that I don't think unless you go there long enough, you realize that fill this form out, send it to this office will stamp it, you send it to this office, they'll sign it, then they'll send it back to this office to stamp it, then they'll send it over to this office. I mean, the process to get me the consulate was almost a year.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So I get it. Folks, I'm going to be right back, though. Chrissy, Francesco, don't go anywhere. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to pay the bills, so be right back with some more enjoyable conversation. Thanks to Greater Pittsburgh Travel. For any of your travel needs, let Tom and the team at Greater Pittsburgh Travel know, and they'll take care of you. For more information, call 412-331-2244 or visit their website at www.greaterpittsburghtravel.com. For all of your plumbing needs, be sure to try Palucci Plumbing. Nick and the team have decades of experience and will get you back up and running. For more information, call Palucci Plumbing at 412-782-5050. And we want to thank the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. If you're interested in learning more, you can find their contact information on Facebook at Calabria Club of Pittsburgh. Again, thanks Domenica and the team at the Calabria Club of Pittsburgh for your support. And we want to thank La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei, the only nonprofit school in Pittsburgh endorsed by the Italian Consulate. If you're interested in learning Italian, or have your children being immersed in the Italian culture and language, be sure to give them a call at 412-404-7070. And that's La Scuola d'Italia Galileo Galilei. We'd also like to thank Chris Gonzalez from the Knights of Columbus. If you have any questions about joining the Knights of Columbus, reach out to Chris Gonzalez at 412-605-9074. All right, welcome back. And Francesco and Chrissy, all right, let's talk a little bit more about the pros and the cons of, I'm going to say getting your citizenship. Now, Chrissy, how long ago did you formally get your Italian citizenship?
2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, so here's a fun question for you. Have you voted yet in Italy?
I did not vote yet, no.
Okay, now.
I used a passport, but I didn't vote yet.
Okay, so let's kind of, here's another question a lot of people don't know. So a lot of people think they get their citizenship and they think, I'm done. Talk about registering with the Comune.
Oh, wow.
That's the perfect start. Please, go ahead, Chrissy. Take it from here.
Well, we're registered at the AIRE.
The IIW, you see.
Right. Okay, that's one thing, but you also have to register with your Comune. So in other words, a lot of people don't know this. When you get your citizenship, you have to trace it back to, so let's just say you're going back to, say, your grandfather or your great-grandfather. They're from somewhere in Italy. When you get your citizenship, you have to register with that Comune. That's more paperwork that a lot of people don't know exists. Did you guys have to do that? And talk about that process.
Well, actually, that's for if you're going by descent and through blood. But because I was able to go through marriage, it's a little bit different for us. I'm under my husband, so I'm under Francesco, essentially.
I'm already in the Comune.
Right. But she had to get registered in the Comune, which means you had to send your marriage certificate to
when we got married.
We did it even before.
Even before, exactly.
Oh, how did you do that?
Well,
he just registered the marriage there, so that so when we actually went to do this paperwork, we already had some things established.
With the apostille, send it with the translation, send it to the consulate in Philadelphia. They forwarded it to the Comune. I checked after a few months, and
but for marriage it was slightly different too, because I actually had to get a language exam. For example, I had to do a language exam that I had to test for.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
Talk about that. Now that was you have to get I think you have to be quote B1 certified.
It's B1. Yeah, I had to get a certification to get B1. Yeah,
now,
to get that.
Now, does you have to do it through? Was that through Siena University? Was it the University of Siena?
There's Siena, and I think there's also Perugia.
Yes.
And Venice as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I found to go through Siena.
Okay, now it's all the Chills exam, though. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it doesn't.
Or no. Do they all do Chills?
Not sure.
I think so.
All right. So for listeners that are thinking about marrying an Italian to get your citizenship, how much Italian did you feel like you had to know? Do you feel fluent, quasi-fluent, or I can survive in a hotel?
Well, I actually continued the process since then, so I'm above that now. But when I went through at the time, a B1 is essentially having to be able to manage yourself fairly well. Once you get higher than that, it's like intermediate level, I guess, if nobody's familiar with how that framework is done in Europe. It's like an intermediate level. So essentially you have to be able to talk, in the present and in the past, and of course in Italian they have a couple different past tenses, and in the future, and be able to, they broke it down into all 4 sections, so you had to have reading, writing, comprehension, and speaking.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had to do kind of all of that. There even was a recording that they had to send in for me. I had to have a conversation with the instructor. So thank goodness everything went well.
Well, let me ask you a question now, because it's very interesting that if you get married, you have to speak Italian. But there's a lot of people that are getting their dual citizenship that can say buongiorno, arrivederci, and grazie.
I know.
Right.
I heard him in the background. So I'm going to be honest about that, because I would say this, anybody listening, I think you should be able to speak some Italian.
I agree.
Yeah, I think because they deem it as a birthright because you didn't break the chain if you're able to get it through the juris sanguinis, through the descent. I think that's where the mindset comes from. But I think it's nice to kind of know some of the language too.
Well, but again, because it goes back to how do I say it like this? How do you define yourself as an Italian? And I know it's more than language, but that is a big part of it. So how can you define yourself as an Italian and not speak Italian?
I know. In fact, it's I'm a little bit upset about that.
It tends to annoy Italians.
Yeah,
True.
it's annoying for just because you don't want to even make an effort. You need to make an effort, and if you don't do it by yourself, you need some kind of law that imposes. When you come to the United States, you gotta know English at a certain point. Otherwise, they don't give you the citizenship. They don't.
Because you had to get your citizenship here as well.
Yeah.
Well, because the test is in English. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, because you can live here in the United States and not speak a lick of English and just be a permanent resident.
You could be a permanent resident, but if you apply for the citizenship, you need some skills.
Right, because you have to take the exam and do the interview. Correct.
Yeah, they actually ask you about history. They ask you about, the flag, all these kind of things. And I think it's right.
Oh, I agree. I agree about that. I would say this to the listeners. If you are thinking about getting your dual citizenship and getting your Italian citizenship, learn the language. If for no other reason, and Francesco, I think you said it, and I'll kind of ask it again, I think Italians do appreciate the effort. Would you agree with that?
Enormously.
Absolutely. Anybody would. Any
Well,
country.
I don't know if the French do, but, we all know what the French grumble, grumble, grumble. No. But I think Italians do appreciate it. I mean, because I've been there many times. And what's funny is I'll do my best to speak Italian. And I'm not super fluent, but I can hold a conversation. I'm getting really good really quick at this new position, though. I'll tell you that much. But what's funny is they'll come back to me sometimes in English, and then I'll try and reply in Italian because I want them to know that I respect the fact that I'm in Italy, and I appreciate you trying to speak English, especially if depending on the topic, I might be struggling. But I think it's important that it's a respect thing. You're in someone else's country. You should respect their laws, their customs, their culture. And so I think if you're going to wear "I'm proud to be an Italian" T-shirt, that's fine. But make the effort to be Italian, even if it's Italian, quote, Italian American. I think you got to just something, even if it's a few phrases, a little bit of conversation. And by the way, Chrissy, you talked about the tenses. Mamma mia. There's subjunctive, conditional, interior. There's the command. There's present. There's passato prossimo.
14, I think,
yeah,
right?
It's insane. But then when you yeah, exactly. Like I still struggle. Depending on it. I think my biggest struggle is, and I didn't realize this, but I think it's the dialects that's killing me. Because when someone speaks slow Italian to me, I get it. But some people just and you're just like, what?
Is it speed or is it like standard, right? Because if they're speaking standard Italian, it's one thing versus dialect, but then there's also the whole speed factor.
Yes. And the worst part about it is when I start talking Italian back, they think, oh, you speak Italian. And then the machine gun goes, and you're like, what the heck? No, lentamente, ti prego, per favore, lentamente. But, I can have a conversation. But I do think it's a beautiful language.
Absolutely. Steve and I are going to be partners after this. We're going to practice, right? We're going to be speaking partners.
Certo. Vogliamo vederti probabilmente domani mattina, se vuoi. Possiamo avere un caffè insieme. Francesco, hai bisogno di lavorare domani mattina?
Va benissimo per noi.
Sì, volentieri.
See, now some of you are going to speak to me in Italian. I'm going to go, what? But I would say this. And Francesco, you said something very, very important to the listeners. If you want to learn Italian, I understand from personal experience, it is hard to get immersion in the United States. But there are so many, whether it's TV, whether it's YouTube videos, whether it's music, that you can just listen to it and teach your brain to hear it. And then it's a repetition thing. Walk around your house, talk to yourself in Italian. Point to an item. La porta, la finestra, sale, pepe, piatto, forchetta, cucchiaio, ciotola, eccetera, coltello. Just point to the different things in your house over and over again. And then when you hear them said back to you, it'll start to register. But I do think you can learn Italian decently without a formal education. I just think it's an immersion that we can now have just because of technology. It's something good in technology. And Chrissy, I know you got an Italian husband, but putting that aside, would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I got my B1 on my own. So Francesco and I, we always say that the relationship was born in English, so we tend to go back to English. So we can talk to each other, but after 10 minutes, we tend to default back to English. But I got my B1 on my own, as we talked about that certification, just by the things around, just by technology and being able to watch these things and listen to the other things, the podcasts or music or whatnot. So that was one of the things that I did to get to B1. To get further, like I've gotten now, now I actually have a teacher that I work with as well once a week, and we go through courses and lessons and all sorts of stuff as well. But Francesco wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, but we also have, funny enough, we just
there's other things we're working on for exactly that. Yes.
A program for students of Italian that are kind of A2, even maybe B1, but even if they're A2, it's un'esperienza linguistica.
So A2 being still in the beginner side, but not at zero, basically, having some level.
I'll tell you what.
What's going on a little bit.
Now let's real quick though, because I know a lot of listeners are going A1, A2, B. What are you talking about? Can you explain that very quickly to the listeners?
Sure. So it's based on the European framework. So they break it down into what's included in this. So basically, they go by A1, A2, B1, B2, and C1, C2. So the A's are the elementary level, the B's are the intermediate, and the C's are the mastery. So being A1 being the lowest, and obviously C2 being mastery like native, which I don't know if anybody gets to, for the record. But so that's kind of how it's broken down. So for this program that Francesco was mentioning, A2 would be upper elementary, I think is what they would refer to it as, which means that you have some knowledge of Italian, being able to understand some things, speak some things on a very basic level, not at zero, not at, okay, how do I say hello? But we're a little bit beyond that, but not into all those 14 verb tenses that we were just mentioning, Steve.
Oh, no.
All right.
No. So the meat of it would be for the people that because there's this huge plateau once you get to intermediate, which I think you can attest to, Steve, that when you're living in the States, it is extremely hard to immerse yourself and get to the next point, whether it's just by drive to try to push you through or, because it just takes a lot of energy to kind of keep going once you reach that plateau,
right.
Because it's to immerse yourself, as you said. So that's why Francesco was mentioning this program that, for example, I've been really fortunate because I have family and friends there and we can stay, and I've been in these little villages and I can really, advance myself by being there for weeks at a time. Not everyone has that,
Right.
Not everyone has that gift. So basically we're trying to recreate this for others.
Yeah, this would be the language experience, basically.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, honey, you should tell, because this actually it's about your legacy to the...
yeah. So, but I don't know if Steve has something else on his agenda before I...
No, tell me. Come on. I told you this is going to be your time.
Oh, you're kind. So essentially...
remember that on your reviews? No, I'm just kidding. I tell my students that. Hey, just remember that on your reviews.
Exactly. No, so essentially, as I mentioned, I've been fortunate enough to have this, so I'm trying to recreate it for others. So basically, in my dad's village, we are organizing a program that we can have people come in and stay for about a week's time for this immersion where they can kind of live and learn. So my dad's village is in the Frosinone region. It's just outside of Rome, so most people would fly into Rome.
Okay.
Not that far. And you would stay a week, and we have B&Bs and everything, that you can stay in there. And we basically have a teacher, and in the mornings you would have lessons, and in the afternoons we will do excursions in the area. So the nice thing about this is if you've been to Italy multiple times, as you said you have, and maybe you've done the trifecta of Rome and Florence and Venice, which are beautiful and I love, but if you want to get, a little bit deeper and a little bit into the Vera Italia, this is a region that it's kind of a sub-region called Ciociaria that people aren't as familiar with, but you're not far from Rome. Okay. It has all these wonderful places and things you can go to that we would do the excursions in the afternoon.
By the way, non sono mai andato a Venezia. Sono andato a Firenze, ovviamente sono andato a Roma, Milano, Napoli, eccetera, in Calabria, eccetera, in Abruzzo, però non sono mai andato a Venezia.
Poverino.
Caspita! You're supposed to go, caspita! Is that the right? Francesco, ho detto giusto. Caspita. So I've never been to Venice. I want to go. It's on my to-dos, but believe it or not, a lot of times I've gone to Italy was actually per lavoro. Now, obviously, I have a lot of vacations, but like the last 2 times, when I went in September last year, that was to premiere the documentary in Milan and Rome. When I went in May before that was in Milan to film the documentary, and it was the year before that I went down to Calabria to visit relatives. So I just haven't had the chance to get up to Venice.
Well, that's okay. There's so much to do in Italy. Everywhere you go.
I know, right? Everything's completely new. And the worst part about the best part is, even though I've gone to Rome, a lot of times, I'll say this: every time I go to Rome, I see something I've never seen before, and that's what I love about Rome. And I'll give you the perfect example. The first few times I went to Rome, I was staying over by the Forum. And the hotel was actually the Colbe. It's a beautiful little hotel, and it was the former monastery, I believe, for Maximilian Kolbe. So if you know who he is, you know the story of Maximilian during the war. A powerful story. So I'm staying in that hotel. Wow. And they would say the Jewish quarter is right over the bridge to the right. I'm telling you, I went to Rome for years and could not find it. Finally, the last time I was in Rome, I literally said, let me get down this street, and there it was. And I was like, I loved it. The food was delicious, beautiful little area. And I'd been there how many times, and could never find it until I just turned one direction down a different street and found it. So totally blew me away.
Jewels everywhere in Italy.
Yeah, I love it. Now let's talk about, but you're talking about, creating essentially an immersion program for a week. Are you going to, when does this go live? Because I tell you what, I'm interested because I love Rome. Mi piace molto andare a Roma.
So our website actually just went live because we're just launching this. So our website just went live, and we have our Facebook page started. So it just basically went live.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Tell folks. We're going to start wrapping up. Then I'll tell you what. Let's do this. How do folks reach you, and what is your website? And I'm going to put it down in the description.
Okay. It's actually called Footsteps Through Time, spelling out. So it's footsteps. Everything's one word. Through time. Spelling out through in Italy.com.
Okay, so footsteps through time in Italy.com.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to put that in the description. Everyone's trying to write that down, especially my wonderful listeners in Brazil, Singapore, Australia.
Sure.
I'm so excited for that. I can't believe for the people in Singapore. Thanks for listening. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
There's a whole bunch of them. I mean, and I love it. In Brazil, and I knew there were a lot of Italians in Australia, and I knew there were a lot of Italians in Brazil, but I didn't realize there were a lot of Italians in Singapore. So shout out to the folks in Singapore.
Me either. That's wonderful.
Okay, that's in the description. Now, Francesco, before we go, real quick, you still do translations when people need their citizenship paperwork translated. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's who did mine.
Okay. All right. How can folks reach you? Because I know you're out. You're actually, if I'm not mistaken, you're actually on the site for the consulate in Philadelphia. Am I correct?
Correct. But my email is F as in Francesco, Pircio, just everything attached, FPIRCIO, at Verba ++, it's VERBA plus.com.
Okay, so Verba ++, literally spelt out. Okay, and again, folks, that's going to be down in the description, so take a look. And I'm excited. Chrissy, tell me. I'm gonna actually follow up with you guys. Mi dica se volete venire all'università domani mattina. Ho bisogno di essere qui, so you tell me. But I'm gonna be here if you guys want to stop over and have a coffee. And you're in Moon, I'm in Moon, everyone's in Moon. Come on over and have a cup of coffee.
All right.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Francesco, Chrissy, grazie mille per il tuo tempo. Il vostro tempo. There were two of you. I want to thank you guys again for joining me today. Fun conversation, and the listeners always. Again, I cannot thank you enough for tuning in, giving me your time. It means a lot. Please share this with folks. I think right now I'm running into the infamous wall of. The word of mouth needs to get a little better because I have some awesome listeners. I got a lot of subscribers. I got people literally all over the world tuning in. I think people will enjoy this because it's a very upbeat show. I try to entertain you as well as give you some information. I've had some fantastic guests, especially over the last 3, 4, 5 months. But even going back, when Claudio and I were doing this, we had some fantastic guests. So again, please share the love. And we're on all of the major streaming services. If you want to find me, you can go out to iHeart, iTunes, Apple Play, you name it, Italian Impact Podcast. I'm out there. Or just go out to the website, ItalianImpactWeekly.com. You can go out there, click on the link at all the social services. Find me. I'm out to Podbean as well. You can find me on there, but keep tuning in, and most importantly, keep sharing. Let's continue to promote Italian culture in a positive and fun way. We're going to get rid of the stupid stereotypes that all we're about is cooking and mob. That really does bother me, and recently I saw a commercial on TV that kind of made reference to that, and I had a conversation with a few folks, and I said, any other culture had done something like this, people would be outraged. But somehow with Italians, we can be represented in a negative light, and it seems to be, quote, okay. So, again, let's share the love. Let's get this culture out there in a positive. Let's tell people who we really are. And if you want to read about being treated unfairly and treated bad, why don't you go back and read the history of the Italian immigrants in America 100 years ago. They weren't exactly treated with love, and they weren't exactly welcomed. And one of the other things that I forgot to mention, in the documentary, after the war was over, Italians weren't allowed to come back to America for about 4 years before they could immigrate back over here. So, we've had our fair share of being shut out of this country. So, again, keep sharing this with your friends. They don't have to be Italian to enjoy it. At least I don't think so. But again, as always, God bless you. I hope to see you next week with a new and exciting guest. Francesco and Chrissy, Pircio, grazie mille. Again, check the description for how to reach out to them. And folks, last words.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks so much for having us. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All
Thanks
right.
to everybody.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao to everybody.